Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. This is Brian Lewis of the Spin Zone. Before I talk about Mack Brown's firing at UNC, I have a special announcement. I am going to be writing for the Fansided Network at fansided.com. I'm going to be writing for the Top Flight, which they cover the Premier League. I did put in to write other facets of the website, including college football, college basketball, and the NBA. Waiting to hear word on that, but so far I'm going to be working with the Top Flight. Could be dropping my debut article probably by the end of the week, early next week, hopefully, right before the month of December starts. But there's going to be a lot of games to cover. So stay tuned, subscribe below, get on Twitter, get on Facebook, follow me. I'm going to be on top of it all. And of course, Mack Brown. So Mack Brown, people may remember, he used to coach the Texas Longhorns, won the national championship in 2006 for the 2005 Longhorns, led by Vince Young, um, and that incredible Texas roster. Just top to bottom, just a great roster. Michael Huff comes to mind as well. A great team, top to bottom at the University of Texas. Jamal Charles was a freshman on that team. True story. That's my favorite Texas player of all time. So with Mack Brown, very much the same way that he left Texas, where he made the announcement that he wasn't going to leave, that he said he was going to return the next season, and then just like the Texas Boosters did, where they let him go, and then they hired Charlie Strong. UNC are making the move now before the NC State game this weekend to move on from Mack Brown, because if he beats NC State, you could very well have and this was something I heard on SiriusXM, where they could see it as it's harder to fire him after beating a rival, but I think now they're getting a leg up on the search. I think it's a lot of times teams will make announcements that the coach is not coming back a day before or a week before the end of the season, because they know they want to get started on the coaching search. They want to tell guys, hey, that we're interested in hiring you. They want to get this done because they know the transfer portal and the early signing portal is coming up in mid-December, and they know that the portal is going to be competitive. They want to give the new coach, time to be able to assemble a squad to be able to have the kind of turnaround that a Kurt Cignetti has had in Indiana, for example, a turnaround that SMU has had, for example. Just the consistency. That's how you build teams. I mean, you look at what happened in Boston College with Bill O'Brien coming in, and between Jeff Hafley and Bill O'Brien, and you see the difference. Obviously, Bill O'Brien's more familiar with the area, being from Brown. He's an Ivy League guy. So, and obviously, being with the Patriots definitely earns you a lot of respect points on that campus, most likely. And I think UNC has to look at it from a different perspective. Now, Mack Brown's record, it's not a bad one. I think for Mack Brown, you're talking about a coach that now in the 90s, when he coached North Carolina from 1988 to 1997, UNC, this was his record, okay? 1988, 1 and 10. 1989, 1 and 10. 1990, 6-4 and 1. 1991, 7 and 4. And then 92, mind you, that Tar Heels team in 92 won 9 games. And I love that old logo, by the way, too. But this was the Jason Stanchek team with Bucky Brooks and Curtis Johnson and Natrone Means and Randy Jordan. They had a couple of NFL guys on that team, obviously. And then 93, they win 10 games. They lose the Gator Bowl. They win the Peach Bowl in 92. They lose the Gator Bowl to Alabama, a very good Alabama team, by the way. The George Teague Alabama teams, I believe. So they finished 19th in the poll in 93. And then 94, they were 8-4. They lost the Sun Bowl to Texas. We'll get to Texas in a second here, because obviously Mack Brown goes to Texas. A little bit of a stumble in 95 with 7 wins, but then 96, they go 10-2. Now, this is the team that had Chris Kleidorf and, of course, Brian Simmons, um, Leon Johnson, L.C. Stevens. So that was the team that they built with there in Carolina. And then Ebenezer Ekabon, who was a tight end for a long time in the NFL as well, was on that team. And then 97, Mack Brown is the head coach, but he leaves before the bowl game. Now, they go on and beat Virginia Tech. This was pre-Michael Vick Virginia Tech, by the way, 42-3. And they had a top 5 defense in college football. Now, keep in mind, these Carolina teams had Dre Bly. So that's just one. Dre Bly was a part of those Rams teams in the early 2000s. And then not really any other familiar names, but Brian Simmons had graduated the year before. So he was obviously with the Bengals and the Philadelphia Eagles. So a lot of familiar players there. And he had a lot of success with the Tar Heels the first time. Now, Mack Brown overall, now the second stint in North Carolina, between 2018 and 2019 and now. So 7-6, 8-4, 6-7, 9-5, 8-5, and then I have a feeling they'll beat NC State and they'll probably go 7-5. I think the whole him going out on top is going to be a lure. They could finish 6-6 also because Carolina's been kind of a seesaw team this year. But overall, Mack Brown hasn't really. I get he came in at the right time. He was the perfect coach to steer the ship in the steady direction. However, I think North Carolina needs a coach that's a little bit more of how are we going to get this program in the right direction. Now, some of the names that have been mentioned to take over. Now, I'll start with Barry Odom, who used to coach at Missouri. Now, those Missouri teams, when he was a defensive coordinator, when they had Gary Pinkel, they were great defensive teams. Now, Missouri had Aldon Smith, and I'm sure, Michael Sam was a great pass rusher for them. They had another pass rusher, Marcus Wheaton, who was not Marcus Wheaton, Marcus Golden, who was wicked good with the Cardinals and the Steelers too. So obviously, his defensive talent, if you will, his ability to find defense is imperative. I think UNLV, you look at those teams, they look every bit as good as those Missouri teams. They don't have a Sheldon Richardson per se, but you know what? They're still very good. And you know what? Odom is the kind of guy that UNC would win with. However, another name I see pop up now, Dan Mullen is the name I see pop up. Now, Dan Mullen had a couple of stories written about him, and I'll cite them in the future if I write about this topic, where there were allegations, if you will, speculation about his recruiting methods. He promised players, he pulled scholarships. In this era of college football, it's a little different for Dan, but Dan being an analyst for 3 years, I think a lot of now, obviously, when we're a little different than the political world, obviously seeing a TV host in those positions and this. Dan Mullen comes from Mississippi State, where after Sylvester Croom, he took Mississippi State to new heights with Dak Prescott. Under Florida, not so good, but I think with Dan Mullen, you're getting a coach that at least maybe Florida wasn't the right job for him. Maybe Florida was just a lot of pressure for a guy of his aptitude. Now, if you're looking at there's already a bunch of articles saying that he's the favorite at UNC. But if you're looking at what he did, he was 34-15, which is still better than what his successor about Billy Napier is doing. And then he also went 69-46 in his 9 seasons at Mississippi State. Perhaps at UNC, that's what they're looking for. Now, I can't vouch for that. However, the guy that I think is going to get now this man's going to be linked to every single job in America that's going to be open, and that's John Sumrall. Now, John Sumrall played linebacker at Kentucky. Now, keep in mind, Kentucky right now is in a position where I think this is a domino effect. Now, very much what happened with college basketball, this could be a domino effect, right? Mark Stoops could very well be in the position where he could be gone. Now, it's already been written by the Blue Nation Wildcat on Fansided, my new contributing website. It's been talked about since late October, a month already, that Mark Stoops could leave that job. Now, if Mark Pope, being the college basketball hire, is any sign of where Kentucky could be going program-wise, they want people that want to rep Kentucky. Well, guess what? John Sumrall becomes the football coach at Kentucky. So if John Sumrall prefers to wait and see what's going to happen with Mark Stoops, or maybe he already has assurances that Mark Stoops is going to leave, there's no way in hell he's not going to go from Tulane to Kentucky, an alma mater too, on top of that. And it's a good time. I think for the Wildcats, look at Kentucky. They beat Duke, and Kentucky looks pretty good under Mark Pope. Mark Pope's the right guy. I said he was the best hire in college basketball. John Sumrall would be a great culture hire for Kentucky, but this isn't about Kentucky. I think for UNC, if Dan Mullen's going to be the hire, I think, I think he's the right guy if you're looking at the vision test, if you will. Arthur Smith, who used to be the coach of the Falcons, is another name that I see pop up. Liberty coach Jamie Chadwell, I think, deserves some hype as well. Iowa State head coach Matt Campbell. Now, Matt Campbell is someone that Iowa State's in a position in the Big 12 where that conference right now is in a very uncertain position. I think that's a great position as well. I think my favorite one of all of them would be if Vanderbilt head coach Clark Lee were to leave. I doubt that. I don't think he would leave. Um, I really do think my favorite one listed might be Matt Campbell, but I don't think he leaves Iowa State, and I don't think John Summerall would take UNC. I think Jamie Chadwell, who went 31-6 at Coastal Carolina, actually that's the guy I would hire. I think if you're going to go 31-6 at Coastal Carolina, who dominates in the FCS, that gives UNC kind of a wherewithal. Obviously, Chadwell has a lot of respect in the FCS, and I think that's the direction I'm going to go is Jamie Chadwell. So I'm hoping that UNC. I'm going to go between Dan Mullen and Jamie Chadwell, but also Barry Odom is a very interesting prospect. I just think, based on his success in Missouri, I don't think he's going to be able to elevate you. Now, for this insight and more insights and everything else, follow me at the Spin Zone BL on X, formerly Twitter. Like my Facebook page, and of course, subscribe below. You'll get everything that I talk about here. Take care.